So from tech titans rerouting our laws to pilots walking off runways, and the SABC trying to fund itself one loophole at a time. Today's news is all about shifting leadership, frozen forecasts, and the quiet wins that you probably missed over the weekend. My friends, this is Daily Bagel, your 8-minute head start on what really matters. Let's get into it. And kicking us off with current affairs, the SABC wants to make TV licenses VAT-free, but not to save you money. You see, in a presentation to Parliament, the public broadcaster confirmed it's applying to Treasury to have TV licenses zero-rated. Now, the catch here is that TV license fees are going to stay exactly the same, but the SABC is going to keep the 15% VAT it used to send to SARS. Now, they say that this would give them a quick 100 million rand boost without raising prices, or at least appearing to. In the end, they're just going to be indirectly taking this from you and I, the taxpayer. So CEO Nomsa Chabeli called this a short-term liquidity fix. How cheeky is that, eh? This comes as the SABC battles 85% evasion rates of TV license payments and now relies on commercial income to fund its 2.3 billion rand public mandate. Now, currently only 13% of its revenue comes from licenses, and nearly half of that gets eaten up by just collection costs, which I gather is those daily SMS demands. So this proposal will require a change to the VAT Act and full parliamentary approval. And so until then, the broadcaster says it's going to be running out of cash and out of time. And next up, it's no longer a question of if passengers will be affected, it is already happening. You see, FlySafair was forced to cancel 26 flights yesterday alone, after dozens of pilots who had confirmed their availability suddenly pulled out the night before. Now, the airline says that the rest of its schedule is holding for now, but some aviation experts warn that this will only be sustainable for about a week, which is rather concerning considering the strike is scheduled to last 2 weeks. So remember, this strike was only supposed to last a single day. Instead, it has ballooned into a 2-week battle over wages, rosters, and respect, with both sides now accusing each other of bad faith. You see, the union says that FlySafair has refused mediation. FlySafair says that solidarity is overreaching. And while these flights are somewhat still operating, the reputational damage is landing fast. So the real test comes this week. If the crews get overstretched and schedules start slipping, FlySafair's business as usual story may be hard to sell, especially to the passengers who are already stranded at the gates. And on to our quick fire mentions. President Ramaphosa is defending Operation Vulindlela after critics have called it privatization in disguise. He says it's not. He says it's about unblocking growth, from fixing visas and rail access to opening up electricity and cutting red tape at municipalities. And cold, wet weather is sweeping across South Africa this week, with widespread rain, icy winds, and even light snow expected in parts of Eastern Cape, Lesotho, and the Drakensberg. And forecasters say it's likely going to be sticking around through the weekend. And on to our finance section. Look, the Starlink BEE saga continues to blow up. You see, the government has received over 19,000 public submissions on the proposed policy shift that could let foreign companies like Starlink operate in South Africa without giving up equity, as long as they commit to long-term development contributions like local investment, training initiatives, or infrastructure support, referred to as equity equivalent programs. So despite many duplicates, the bulk of these responses came from everyday Starlink supporters driven by online campaigns, as well as telecom giants like MTN and Cell C, who submitted more detailed formal feedback. So in case you've missed this whole proposal, it was tabled by our communications minister in May, and it drew a lot of public attention, not just because of what it says, but because of when it landed, which was just days after the South African delegation met with US officials in the Oval Office. Now, our minister insists that it's not a Starlink loophole, saying that it would apply more broadly across the sector. So MTN and others say that they're open to this idea, but only if everyone gets to play by the same rules. And while the department hasn't given an official timeline just yet, one thing's for certain is that this debate isn't dying down anytime soon. And on to our quick fire mentions. Capitec's leadership baton has officially been passed. Longtime CEO Khadi Fourie is out and Graham Lee is in. Fourie oversaw massive growth over 11 years, taking the bank from a microlender to a financial heavyweight with 24 million clients. And gas prices in the Western Cape are still under fire, with importers applying a 73 cents per kilo surcharge, despite a government intervention meant to stabilize the costs. Now, wholesalers say that they are being squeezed and customers are paying the price. And on to our sports section. While most of South Africa was buzzing over the Springboks and the Junior Boks this past weekend, the Proteas quietly handled business in Harare, cruising to a 7-wicket win over Zimbabwe. You see, chasing 145, things look pretty shaky early on as both openers fell with just 22 runs on the board. But newcomer Ruben Herman rose to the occasion. You see, the 28-year-old blasted a clinical 63 runs off 36 balls, his first international half-century, in a dominant 106-run stand with skipper Rassie van der Dussen, who finished unbeaten on 52. Now, it was a polished performance across the board. Corbin Bosch led the bowling attack with 2 for 16, while Berger, Ngidi, and Peter chipped in with tidy spells. So this win knocks Zimbabwe out of the T20 Tri-Series and sets up a likely final against the unbeaten New Zealand. But first, they meet again on Tuesday, and our boys will be looking to even the scores after our loss last week. And on to our quick fire mentions. Mamelodi Sundowns striker Lucas Ribeiro has won FIFA's Club World Cup goal of the tournament. His 47-yard solo run against Dortmund beat out finalists like Messi and João Pedro. In case you missed it, Scotty Scheffler has finally won the Open Championship, adding a claret jug to his growing list of titles. That's 4 majors now, and with a US Open win, he'd complete the career Grand Slam. And Wales has named Steve Tandy as their new head coach after a record-breaking losing streak. The former Lions and Scotland defence boss kicks off in November with a brutal stretch, including South Africa and New Zealand. And before we continue, here is your Bagel Bite of the day. How many satellites does Starlink approximately have in orbit as of mid-2025? Is it A, 500, B, 4,800, or C, 7,800? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. And on to our wildcard section. Most South Africans don't know where we stand on the death penalty, or who still uses it. You see, last year at least 1,153 people were executed worldwide, the highest number that Amnesty has recorded since 2015. And look, that doesn't include China, which keeps execution data secret, but is believed to be the world's top user. So this rise was driven by just a handful of countries. Iran alone carried out nearly 3/4 of all known executions. Saudi Arabia was next, with public beheadings back on the menu. Even the US upped its tally using lethal injections and nitrogen gas. And at the other end, 112 countries have abolished the death penalty and dozens more haven't executed anyone in years. As for South Africa, we scrapped it in 1995, and the courts ruled it unconstitutional shortly after. So it seems to be off the books and off the table. Still though, some South Africans say that we should bring it back, especially for violent crimes. Others argue that it's a human rights violation that doesn't reduce crime. As for you though, what's your take? Should the death penalty ever return to South Africa? Or is life something that no state should have the power to take away? And as for that Bagel Bite, the answer is 7,800. That's right, as of this winter, Starlink has nearly 8,000 satellites in orbit, with thousands more launching every month. Now, SpaceX eventually wants to grow this network to a staggering 42,000 satellites, forming one of the largest systems ever put in space. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Just a reminder that if you do prefer your news on the go, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Have a cracker Tuesday. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you all same time tomorrow. Cheers.